Banking distribution of petroleum products grounded as labor union strike begins. Federal government reconvenes wage panel for next week. 16 miners kidnapped by gunmen in Kaduna State. In international news, International Monetary Fund agrees to provide bigger and faster bailouts to Argentina. And in sports, Nigeria's D Tigers beat Greece to qualify for FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup quarterfinals, face defending champions United States.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Nigeria Labour Congress did not go back on its word as labour strike kicks off today. Distribution of petroleum products, banking and other essential services are grounded from today as workers in the petroleum, financial, maritime and other sectors of the economy have kicked off a nationwide strike. Stakeholders in the organised private sector are afraid of the effect of the strike they believe could send the economy back into recession. The Labour Union says the strike is to compel the federal government to complete work on the new national minimum wage and announce its figures.
The labour organs further mandated the leadership to take all necessary steps, including a rolling strike, in the first instance, to compel government to reconvene the meeting of the committee in order to bring it to a logical conclusion. Furthermore, in compliance with this mandate, all workers in the public and private sectors at all levels across the country have been so directed to comply effectively.
Efforts by the federal government to prevent the strike failed yesterday, but another meeting between the minimum wage panel and the federal government's delegation will take place in a week.
National Minimum Wage Committee is a tripartite committee, and the discussions done there are tripartite negotiations. So the issue of minimum wage is a tripartite negotiation, and we must reach what is called collective bargaining. The meeting was adjourned. Synod means no date. The date could be tomorrow, it could be next tomorrow, it could be 1 week.
16 minors, 6 of whom are from the same family, have been kidnapped along Birnin-Gwari-Kaduna Expressway. Armed bandits have struck in 2 separate raids as 2 sections of the deadly highway. Residents and stakeholders are urging the federal government to declare total war against armed bandits and brand them terrorists. At least 200 houses have been submerged in yesterday's floods in Ilorin, rendering many families homeless. The most affected areas are Duraliri and Isale Koko communities in Ilorin East local government area. Victims now take refuge in churches, mosques and with neighbors. Chairman of Adura Lere community, Tude Aremu, says victims could not salvage any of their belongings. He attributed the flood to blocked drainages. The national headquarters of the Social Democratic Party has disagreed with the Osun State chapter, which backs governorship candidate Iyala Omishiri's decision to support the ruling All Progressives Congress in today's rerun election. National SDP headquarters says the party is committed to serving the Nigerian people on the basis of the party's vision, principles and goals of social democracy. Osun State chapter says it agrees with the party's governorship candidate to support the APC in the supplementary election. Osun SDP says APC is more reliable than the People's Democratic Party. Both APC and PDP sought Omishiri's support for the supplementary election. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has warned that moving the PDP National Convention away from Port Harcourt as a result of pressure from some presidential aspirants would carry some consequences. Wike also declared that depriving Port Harcourt of the hosting rights for the party convention could hurt the state economy. He further warned that there would be no support from the state for an aspirant he called desperate to support denying Port Harcourt of the hosting rights to the convention. He says the presidential aspirant's action could sabotage the economy of the state. The Federal Executive Council has approved $64 million for a power supply project in Delta State. FEC also approved 612 million naira as revised estimated total cost for the completion of the Cham Dam and the development of an irrigation scheme in Gombe State. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Ibe Kachuku says the Ex-Crevasse Power Project would put an end to the 18 million naira NNPC spends monthly to supply power to the area.
And today we approached the council to approve $64,235,644 to fund two lots, one for the supply of the power itself, which is building the plant, all the engineering services that are required to do that, and then also distributing the power within the immediate community or series of communities that are affected.
The Debt Management Office has announced that it has raised additional 96 billion naira to finance the 2018 Appropriations Act. The DMO says the funds were raised through issuance of FGN bond in the primary debt market for 3 different tenors that were oversubscribed by more than 60 billion naira. The federal government's August and September bond auctions were also oversubscribed. The DMO says proceeds from the auction would provide additional financing for the implementation of the 2018 Appropriations Act. The Central Bank of Nigeria has given notice it intends to revoke the operating licenses of 182 other financial institutions in the country. 154 of the affected institutions are microfinance banks, 6 are primary mortgage banks, while the remaining 22 are finance companies. CBN says 62 of the microfinance banks are already closed to shops. 74 became insolvent, 12 were terminally distressed, and 6 have voluntarily liquidated. The central bank says the affected institutions are spread across different states in the country. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA) has carried out registration and deregistration of 52 aircraft. It has also issued and renewed 115 airworthiness certificates between January and June. NCAA Director General Captain Mokhtar Usman has called for a united approach in information dissemination. Reading out the figures, Captain Usman said 10 aircraft were deregistered, while another 12 were re-registered within the period in review. Mokhtar said in the review period, the regulators have also issued 36 pilot licenses, 750 pilots medical and instruments, and has also changed to 20 foreign licenses, issued 222 cabin crew licenses, as well as renewed 206 cabin crew medicals. The DG says only 25 pieces of baggage were depleted. Coming up, news around Africa, and later, IMF agrees to provide bigger bailouts for Argentina as economy worsens.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In news across Africa, An independent study on South Sudan's civil war has estimated 190,000 persons have been killed. The figure rises to at least 383,000, but factors such as population displacement, disruption to health facilities and lack of food are included. The study by researchers at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, released on Tuesday, suggests the number could be higher. A UN official said in 2016 that 50,000 persons had been killed and nearly a quarter of the population of 12 million uprooted by the fighting, which broke out after a political disagreement 2013 between President Salva Kiir and the former Vice President Riek Machar, whom he had sacked. President Kiir had now signed a peace agreement with Machar and other rebel factions in the Ethiopian capital this month. The World Bank says it has approved $80 million in grants to Somalia to fund public finance reforms, making the first disbursement to the government in 30 years. The World Bank had suspended ties with the country when war broke out in 1991. It resumed support in 2003, but only focused on HIV/AIDS and livestock programs with other organizations. Now the bank says its board had approved financing of $60 million for the recurrent cost reform financing project and $20 million for the domestic revenue and public financial management capacity strengthening project. The bank said it would also work with the government in Mogadishu to improve services like education and healthcare, access to clean water, energy and finance for its citizens under a program called Country Partnership Framework. Sierra Leone's immigration officials say some 38 Chinese nationals face deportation for alleged involvement in illicit gold mining and child labor. A police spokesman says men, girls and boys were subjected to inhumane working conditions, including working in tunnels and illicit mining that cause environmental degradation. A Sierra Leone Immigration Department official said that Chinese nationals will be deported next month. China's embassy in Freetown says China is opposed to illicit mining of any kind and was willing to work with the authorities to root out the practice. A new study has found that nearly half of Kenyan mothers with disabled babies were pressured to kill them. The two-year research carried out by the charity Disability Rights International also found that such mothers are often blamed for the conditions of their children. More than two-thirds of mothers interviewed said disabled children were considered a curse. They told researchers they were accused of having sinned and that they brought this upon themselves. The study did not reveal the proportion of parents who allegedly or actually killed their disabled children. Many communities around the world which carried out infanticide in the past have ended the practice, and it is illegal in Kenya as well. There is a new law in Benin Republic which requires anyone wanting to stand in presidential elections to pay the equivalent of around $450,000. Former president of the country, Nice Ford Soglo, has strongly criticized the recently approved law, describing it as brutal and clumsy. He said President Patrice Talon's government was excluding anyone who was young, poor and disadvantaged. If Benin Republic's Constitutional Court confirms this law, parties will now need to pay a similar fee to take part in parliamentary elections. The country goes to the polls in 2020. U.S. First Lady Melania Trump has listed the African countries she would visit next month during a solo international and first trip to the continent. Nigeria and South Africa did not make the cut. She announced at a UN reception in New York that she will visit what she called 4 beautiful and very different countries: Ghana, Malawi, Kenya and Egypt. Mrs. Trump said the trip will be organized with the U.S. government's International Aid Agency and will be part of the BEST campaign, which aims to improve child welfare. The visit starts on Monday. When we return, International Monetary Fund agrees to provide faster bailouts to Argentina, and later, D Tigres beat Greece to qualify for quarterfinals.
You are watching ANN.
MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM. That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
There is a new all-news network on the scene in Nigeria to give news from a purely news perspective and to promote free information flow across Africa. Fresh views, unbiased, bold, with a purely African view. African News Network, ANN, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and international news. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has agreed to provide a bigger, faster bailout to Argentina than initially planned in an effort to restore market confidence in the country. The monetary body plans to boost its 36-month financial package by $7 billion, adding to the $50 billion previously announced. The move comes as Argentina faces budget deficits and economic crisis. The country's economy has contracted as the value of the Argentine peso has plunged and drought hits its agricultural exports. Alarmed investors have pulled money from the country, leaving in turmoil the government and companies that held dollar debt. Government officials plan to use this emergency financial package to support the budget. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde says she was confident the package, one the biggest in IMF history, would help restore market confidence in Argentina. Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Peru, Paraguay and Canada have made the unprecedented move of formally asking the International Criminal Court, ICC, to investigate Venezuela on a range of possible charges from murder to torture and crimes against humanity. The 6 countries hope the move will put new pressure on Maduro to end the violence and conflicts that have sent more than 2 million persons fleeing. Venezuela's inflation and homicide rates are also among the highest in the world. U.S. President Donald Trump has also hinted military action may be taken against Venezuela in addition to already existing sanctions. This marks the first time the member countries have preferred another country to the Netherlands-based UN court. ICC Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda had opened a preliminary investigation into the allegations. The 6-country referral could broaden the scope of the ongoing probe to make serious charges leveled against Venezuela. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said at the UN on Wednesday that he is willing to shake hands with the United States counterpart Donald Trump amid sanctions and despite their differences. The socialist leader made an unexpected visit to the UN General Assembly in New York to, in its words, defend his country. Venezuela has been in dire economic crisis since 2014. An estimated 2.3 million citizens have fled hyperinflation, power cuts, food and medicine shortages. 6 countries have accused Maduro of crimes against humanity. Trump had earlier said he was willing to meet with Maduro. Poland's most senior judge has defied controversial government reforms lowering retirement age. She has vowed to remain at a post until 2020 unless the constitution is changed or she dies. As part of the government's reforms, the retirement age of Supreme Court judges was lowered from 70 to 65. That move affects 27 of the country's 72 sitting judges. 65-year-old Małgorzata Getzdorf, heads of Poland's Supreme Court, said in a statement that the government's judicial reforms were dangerous to democracy in a country already in friction with the rest of Europe. The European Commission decided on Monday to sue Warsaw for violating its judicial independence and breaching European Union core principles. India's top court has ruled adultery is no longer a crime, striking down a 158-year colonial law which it said treated women as male property. Previously, any man who had sex with a married woman without the permission of her husband had committed a crime. A petitioner had challenged the law, saying it was arbitrary and discriminatory against men and women. This is the second colonial-era law struck down by India's Supreme Court this month. It earlier overturned a 157-year-old law which criminalized gay sex in India. Up next, sport. The Tigers defeats Greece to qualify for FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup quarterfinals. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your hand, that's Palasa phone.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sport. The Nigeria women's basketball team, the Tigers, have qualified for the quarterfinal stage of the ongoing FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup in Spain after narrowly beating Greece 57-52. Both teams were tied 15-15 at the end of the first quarter. The Nigerian team picked up in the second quarter, establishing a 5-point lead going into halftime at 16-11. The third quarter got better for them as they further increased their lead with 17-11 third quarter win. The Greeks clawed back into the game, leading as much as 10-3, even though the Tigers lost the final quarter 9-29. They held on to finish overall 57-56. Nigeria will now face defending champions, the U.S., in the quarterfinals. Sierra Leonean referee Victor Mara has collapsed and died while officiating a community league football match in Freetown on Tuesday. It happened a few minutes before the end of the well-attended match between Krolbed and Falcon 12 FC. Attempts were made to revive the 27-year-old, but he was pronounced dead before being rushed to the hospital. Exact cause of death is yet unknown. Wonder what could have caused that, so sad. This is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great evening.